Well, when you have this endless narrative of we're living under a fascist regime and everyone's rights are in jeopardy and Trump is the new age Hitler, then it's not surprising that mentally ill people may take it upon themselves to do something about that. And I've got to say, talk about mentally ill people online, the comments I've seen on pieces about this just again, appalling, but sadly not all that surprising. People saying, at least he had a go, he had the right idea, I hope the next one can follow through. That sort of commentary it seems to be just so prevalent and so normalized among the left. The left has a problem with political violence. We've seen it over and over again, and it's something that is not widely acknowledged, certainly in the media, Josh.
This is the issue that will tear America apart. I'm really not exaggerating when I say that. If there is any issue that genuinely will take this country down, and I mean that very, very sincerely. Look, Abraham Lincoln, my favorite hero in American history, he gave a very famous speech in 1838 called the Lyceum Address in Springfield, Illinois. He was actually only 29 years old at the time, I believe, 20 or 29. And he famously said that America would never be destroyed from beyond, from without, that she would only be destroyed from within and would come essentially at our own
Mm.
hands. Now, tragically, Lincoln actually was quite prescient. He, of course, led the country through the Civil War, where we came perilously close to doing exactly that. But now here we are, over a century and a half after the Civil War, and for many people, overwhelmingly, as you correctly note, on the political left, they have made a decision where they are not content to simply let our political disagreements be hashed out in the marketplace of ideas. They will not be settled at the ballot box. And the day that more and more people finally decide to ditch the ballot box once and for all and to take up knives and firearms and God forbid something even worse than that in its place there, that really is the day that the American Republic becomes perilously close to just dying off
Mm.
there. Famously, this country was made as a republic if you can keep it, is what Benjamin Franklin said back in 1787 to a curious onlooker there in the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. And it really is up to us to keep this republic there. And political violence could easily be the death knell of this country, I fear.
Now to the Supreme Court decision on President Trump's tariffs. Tell me about this decision. The court was split 6-3, and Justice Kavanaugh wrote a very interesting dissent. Explain this ruling to my audience, Josh, and what you expect to see happening next.
So the first thing to know is just kind of before we get into legal weeds is it's going to be a total mess if the government actually has to start offering refunds for the dozens, hundreds. I think it's roughly $175 billion in tariff revenue that they have already corrected through these reciprocal tariffs, which have been implemented through this late 1970s statute, the IEEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. So the basic legal argument here is that this statute that passed during the Jimmy Carter presidency, a little over a half century ago, give or take, was it allows the president, Congress delegates to the president the ability to regulate importation when there is an economic emergency. Donald Trump, because of his theory on trade, he cares a lot about the balance of trade, he cares a lot about the fact that America has been ripped off by the globalist class for a long time there, viewed our massive trade deficits as an economic emergency. And he therefore invoked this statute to impose these tariffs. On the other side, you have the basic constitutional baseline that says that Congress shall have the ability to impose duties, so tariffs and things like that. So the basic legal question is, did this statute carve out a dispensation from the basic constitutional rule? I was very candid with my own audience on my show, Rita. I said this is actually a very close legal question. I also said that the administration is correct. I do think that Kavanaugh has the better of the argument in his dissent. I am hardly shocked, though, if I'm being candid, that the administration lost. I thought that Neil Gorsuch, I thought that Amy Coney Barrett, I thought that some of these Republican nominee justices would go the other way and side against the administration. The good news is that there are plenty of other statutes that seem to actually be sure legal footing for Donald Trump to do exactly this. Kavanaugh, towards the end of his dissent, actually lists at least three or four different statutes So the good news is that I don't think we will probably get into this very messy, sordid business of giving out refunds, whoever the heck that would possibly work there. I think Trump will probably just try to do this all over again on a different statute. I'm sure some people will sue, to be clear, but some of these other
Eh,
statutes seem to have surely legal footing, from what I can tell.
well, apparently this ruling did not mention what to do with the hundreds of billions that's already been collected. You would think that would be something to actually, I don't know, comment on. Before you go, is Amy Coney Barrett Donald Trump's biggest mistake of his first term, or amongst his biggest mistakes? Because she has had, she's been on, she's been a frustration for the administration, let's just say.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Look, I will say this. I will say that the two most conservative justices on the U.S. Supreme Court by far are Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito. Clarence Thomas has been on the court for 35 years, Alito for 20 years there. All three of Trump's picks are correct more often than they are incorrect. None of them is a Clarence Thomas or Sam Alito stalwart. For what it's worth, reading my own personal 2 cents, I think Donald Trump's worst mistake from his first term was the First Step Act. This pro criminal justice reform jailbreak legislation there was kind of ushered in by Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Unfortunately, it was kind of a bit of a precursor to the George Floyd Black Lives Matter summer. Trump, for what it's worth, has done something of a mea culpa on that there. I don't think that we'll ever see that again there. God willing, we'll continue to do a little better when it comes to judicial nominations, including the U.S. Supreme Court.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.